There's a story about two men. They were walking through the field one day. They were just walking and talking, and they'd crossed over this fence, and they were just noticing all the beauty around them. And they were so deeply engrossed in the conversation that all of a sudden they were shocked, because off in the distance, about 100 yards away, there was a snorting bull. And you could see that the bull was not happy that they were in his territory. So all of a sudden they look at each other, and one of them's name was John, and he said to his companion, he said, "We better start running. That bull does not look happy." So they started running, and his companion, as they're running, they turned around, they're looking, and the bull is coming faster and faster toward them. And he looks at John, his companion looks at John and says, "John, you better start praying." And John says, "I've never prayed out loud. I don't really pray that much." He said, "Well, you better come up with something, because that bull is going to catch us." And he said, John, as he's running, he's saying, "The only thing I can think of is what my father said at the table. Thank you, God, for what we're about to receive." And I wonder, is that the only time that we ever offer up a thankful heart? Is that the only time that we actually sit down and think and actually thank God for all that He's done? So today, I told you, we're going to take this and we're going to do this a little bit different. And because I'm going to play off of what we talked about last week. And if you weren't here last week, we talked about coming to God and giving Him the leftovers. We talked about the blemished lamb that we had talked about in church a couple weeks ago, and how that we come to God and we give Him less than our best. And God wanted us to bring our best to Him. And back in the Old Testament, when He put down all the laws and the rules and the sacrifices and told them how to do everything, there was a group of offerings. They were called peace offerings. And the peace offerings, one of the peace offerings was called a thank offering. And so today I want to explain a little bit about the thank offering. And then we're going to move into what that means to us today. As a thank offering was not something that was set at a certain time of the year. It could be done at any point in time. But there were certain rules, certain things that you had to bring to this thank offering. First thing that you had to bring was unleavened bread. And there were three types of unleavened bread. There was bread that was mixed with oil. That was very similar to what we have here. It is actually a cracker. It's a kosher cracker. And they were to bring that. And then they were to bring some bread that was actually anointed with oil. And that this was a very thin wafer. And then they were to bring more bread. That was a mixture of fine flours. And they were to bring this and present all these together, all three different types of breads, to God as a part of their thank offering. And the thank offering, the reason for these is because God wanted us to bring everything in our life. He wanted us to worship Him and to be thankful, not just with words, but with our body, our mind, and our soul. In addition to the unleavened bread, it was also asked that they bring a leavened loaf. Now, leavened loaf is one that has yeast in it. And the leavened loaf there's significance in this, because throughout the Bible, most of the time when they talk about leaven, it is in a negative way. And so the symbolism for bringing the leavened loaf was bringing to God and thanking Him for not only the good things, but also the bad things that were going on in your life. And presenting everything and having a thankful heart. And as they also brought in the sacrificial, it could have been a lamb or oxen or a goat, and they would bring that, and the blood would be sprinkled on the altar. The blood symbolizing for them the covering of the sins. For us, what Jesus did on the cross for us. And there was a process where they went through and they did what they called a heave offering. Now, a heave offering was something that the people actually used their bodies as a part of. And after the things were consecrated by the priest and the offerer, the person who had come to give the thanks, would then come in, and the priest would put his hands underneath the hands of the offerer, and they would heave it up to God as an offering to God. And while they were doing that, this heave offering, just continually taking it up to God, up and down, God, here is what I offer you. They would say and recite psalms, praises of what God had done, very similar to this.
Sing to the Lord with a new song. Sing to the Lord, all the earth. Sing to the Lord, praise his name. Proclaim his salvation day after day. Declare his glory among the nations, his marvelous deeds among all peoples. For great is the Lord, and most worthy of praise. He is to be feared above all gods. For all the gods of the nation are idols, but the Lord made the heavens. Splendor and majesty are before him. Strength and glory are in his sanctuary. Ascribe to the Lord, all you families of nations. Ascribe to the Lord glory and strength. Ascribe to the Lord the glory due his name. Bring an offering and come into his courts. Worship the Lord in the splendor of his holiness. Tremble before him, all the earth. Say among the nations, the Lord reigns. The world is firmly established. It cannot be moved. He will judge the peoples with equity. Let the heavens rejoice. Let the earth be glad. Let the sea resound, and all that is in it. Let the fields be jubilant, and everything in them. Let all the trees of the forest sing for joy. Let all creation rejoice before the Lord, for he comes. He comes to judge the earth. He will judge the world in righteousness, and the peoples in his faithfulness.
And as they lifted that heave offering to God and offered it to God, it was a symbol. It was a symbol of handing over to God the first fruits, the most important, the best of what they had to offer that day. And then the significant thing about this type of offering is that a portion of it was burned on the altar to God. The remaining portion was to be eaten. Eaten very similar in a way that we do our Thanksgiving today. It was a time for family and friends to come together, to be thankful together, to partake of the offering that they made to God together. And so God, as you can see, God already had Thanksgiving in mind. The Thanksgiving that we celebrate next week, when family and friends come together and we eat the turkey or the ham or whatever it is that we eat. It is a time, as we're told when we grow up, to be thankful. Thankful for everything that's gone on in our life. But even more importantly, an opportunity to be thankful to God. One more significant thing about that offering is that it had to be eaten in the same day. It could not be carried over. Anything that was not eaten in the same day had to be taken and burned, signifying for us that we need to come to God with a thankful heart each and every day, thanking him for the blessings, thanking him for the struggles and the trials, thanking him for everything that is in our life. And we're just to present to God a sacrifice. Whereas in the Old Testament, it was an animal that was killed. As we talked last week, it is sacrificing our bodies as a living sacrifice, holy and acceptable. This is your act of service. So today, I told you it'd be different. Today, there's a question, and we're gonna do this. We did something like similar to this a couple months ago. where we're going to sit at the tables, and the discussion question today is, talk about what you're thankful for. All right? This could be the good things, but it also could be the bad things that are going on in your life. Things that God is using to teach us. Things that I am so thankful for, that I am going in the middle of. And even though it's hard, I know God is going to use this to make me the man that He wants me to be. And so, at the end of this, we're going to take 15 minutes. We're going to come back. And as we did a couple months ago, one person from each table is going to stand up here. You pick them. The most significant statement of thankfulness to say and tell and lift it up as our heave offering to God. This is what I'm thankful for. I am so grateful to be in this place. For me, I've got some particular things that I have been thankful for just in the past week. Many you know my father-in-law, and I call him Dad because he's just like a dad to me. But all of the family from Tracy's side has moved down here to be a part of this area. Everybody has accepted Christ except for one sister and her husband that have continued to live in Pennsylvania. And we found out in the past couple weeks, and we got the final word last night, that their house is sold and they're moving down here. And you've got to understand, this isn't a depressed area up there. There are houses, when Dad and Mom sold their house 2 years ago, that are still sitting on the market. And yet Kelly and David put their house up for sale less than 2 months ago. And an offer came in, and it was accepted. And I can't help but think, God, you really want them here. You really want them to be in a place where they can get to know you, where they can possibly come to be your children. And I am so thankful for that. God loves us that much. And I think about my grandchildren, especially Isabel, who last week had surgery to reconnect her intestines from the disease that had eaten a part of her intestines out, and they had to do a colostomy bag on her for 6 or 7 weeks. And how she went back into surgery last week, and the doctor said it'll be 5 to 10 days before we know whether or not the intestines will actually work. And yet her intestines started working in 4 days. And she started eating. And even though she's going to remain in the hospital for 6 to 8 months, as they build up her feeding, I am so thankful. Because God has given us so many gifts. And it is, I can see His hand in this, and Tracy's daughter and son-in-law who are not believers. I see God working in this also. So, what about you? What are you thankful for? Really dig deep. Don't make this superficial. This is an opportunity to fully experience and to fully give your heave offering to God and say, God, this is what I bring, and I offer it to you. Whether it's good or whether it's bad, I offer it to you as a sacrifice. Okay? And then we'll come back and do this together. Ready? 1, 2, 3, go.